I think he works really well as like a rotation, like a tactical
Yeah,
choice that you make against certain types of teams. I just can't see him playing and being great for us in every game. That's the issue that I've got
no,
with him, is that he's got a very specific style.
yeah. You've
German
paid,
Emil Heskey out here.
yeah, yeah. You've paid like 65 million for German Fellaini. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Social Media Derby. Before we get into today's episode, for those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share if you can, drop your comments down below. For those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of other podcasting platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review if you can. Helps the podcast, helps us grow, helps us get in front of more people. Let's get into today's podcast. I feel like this is going to be a really upbeat, positive one. 2 wins for both our teams. A big win in the top of the table clash for Arsenal at home to Liverpool at the Emirates, 3-1, and Man United in the what do you want to call it? Top 6 battle, top 4 race for top 4, 3-0 at home to West Ham. But before we get into the games, how you doing, Jonty? You good?
Yeah, man, I'm doing pretty well, especially coming off the back of that weekend result. I'm doing a lot better. Given the previous results we've had against Liverpool, I was not expecting the best, let's say.
Yeah, no. It's quite an interesting one because we obviously talked about it last week on last week's pod, and we weren't super upbeat. And I think I predicted a 2-1 Arsenal win, but I was kind of clutching at more of the performances in the last few games rather than the results. There's obviously a lot of chat about how Man City and Liverpool have gotten the best of Arsenal in some of these big top of the table clashes. But I saw some really interesting stats actually that you guys are like unbeaten against Liverpool or something in the last like 5 or 6 games in the league anyway. Not talking about the FA Cup games. So maybe we were wrong to be slightly down on you guys' chances. But let's get into that game then. I think we have to start there. It was the last game of the weekend. Well, not really, because Man City played yesterday, but it was the last game on Sunday. Arsenal 3-1 winners against Liverpool. First of all, what do you make of the match?
Yeah, I think it was a pretty exciting game. I have to say I was quite frustrated, and I was talking to you about it at the same time, with how we kind of set up to play against them in terms of like dropping deep and giving them loads of time on the ball. But the more that I look back at it now after the game, I've kind of realized maybe that was an intentional tactic from Arteta, and kind of just letting them keep on spraying balls around and then trying to close down very quickly. And I saw some pretty good analysis from Carragher about like how we'd move from like a 4-4-2 type of formation in defense to this kind of man marking and closing the ball down quickly. And the more he talked about it and using some of the examples that he used as like the highlights, I think it ended up working really well. So overall, I thought, the game was obviously pretty good. In the first half, the early goal, I was thinking, oh crap, here we go again. Vice City, Grand Theft Auto vibes, here we go again. Because I really don't like scoring early against them. And they've obviously shown this year that they can come back from a defeat pretty well. I think they showed a stat that they're number 1 in the league right now for coming back from a deficit of some sort. So I started worrying. Everything was going all right, until what was it, the 47th minute or whenever, when just the stupidest thing happened. I got the little live score alert on my watch before it actually happened on the telly. So I knew something was coming. I was just dreading it. And the way that we let it in just absolutely killed me. I know we're going to get onto that a little bit later, but it was the most disappointing way to let in a goal just before half time. And at that point, I was thinking, oh man, we're going into half time with no momentum. I would even say Liverpool would have had more of the momentum at that point. Then they come out for the second half. They're looking really good. They're kind of like really pressuring us. I heard some people say that they dominated us, which is obviously but they were obviously quite good. They were having a lot more of the possession. And then from there, it just kind of descended into madness, right? And we managed to get one back on them with a stupid goal. And then from there, it just descended into like yellow card madness. And Anthony Taylor just went nuts, giving everyone a yellow card. Obviously, then you get the sending off, and we kind of finish it with a beautifully taken goal by Trossard. So it started to get a bit crazy after that second Arsenal goal, because I think Klopp started making a bunch of changes. I remember at one point Luis Diaz being a right back. They were going a bit nuts with it. So I can see why from there we'd be able to grab another goal. And I think probably, a lot of people are saying that again, they're saying that we dominated Liverpool and we were much better than them and all of that. But I do think it was still a pretty close, like tight fought game. So overall, I think 3-1 is maybe not necessarily flattering, but I think, I'm happy with that performance. I'm happy with the result. Just happy to get one over Liverpool. How did you see it?
Yeah, no, I agree with pretty much everything. I actually feel like you did pretty much pam them. I know there was probably like I'm saying that objectively as a non Arsenal or Liverpool fan watching the game, and I guess if it was my team, I could understand why you would feel kind of like the game was closer than it was. But even at 1-1, it wasn't a 1-1 game. Like I'm not saying you were like raining chances down on their goal, but you were very comfortable. Even that 10-15 minutes after the halftime break, Liverpool just looked slightly better and had a bit more of the ball than they did in the first half. I don't really think they looked super promising. I don't remember like Raya pulling out any big saves or even like having too many dangerous opportunities in that period. They just started to string a few passes around and looked a bit more like what you would have expected from Liverpool. But I actually think 3-1 is fair. I think a 2-1 win wouldn't have been reflective of how that game went. I think I watched it on Monday Night Football yesterday as well, Carragher breaking down some of the play. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't watching it in real time going, oh, this is what's happening, this is what's going on. But he pointed out what I think was very obvious, even from like, an amateur football fan watching its eyes, which was Arteta got the tactics right on Sunday. And Klopp, I don't know if Klopp got his tactics wrong or whether his players just didn't turn up. But Liverpool were, I said it on Twitter, they were a two-pack of in that game. They were really underwhelming. I can't think of any kind of patterns that they had in that match that kind of were reminiscent of Liverpool, even in other parts of this season. I just felt like it was a really underwhelming performance, and I don't know if I want to hammer Liverpool for it or I want to give Arteta all the credit. It's probably a bit of both, because I think Arteta, I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a masterclass, but he nailed it. He got everything right. I think that the pressure on Joe Gomez was smart. I mean, maybe it was obvious because he's probably the least technically gifted of Liverpool's centre backs or defensive line, but I think he got that game plan perfectly and the players executed it to the T. And then I think your attack just showed up, man, and players that maybe you weren't expecting to show up, but came through clutch with really big performances. So I think 3-1 was fair, and I'm chuffed, man. I'm not an Arsenal fan. Obviously, the whole purpose of this podcast is that we give each other a bit of shit. But obviously, it made me very happy to see Liverpool catch the L, and kind of also considering United are not involved in the title race, it's good to see more teams in and around it. I think if you guys had lost or drawn and stayed at the distance you were, it would have just been. I don't even think Liverpool would have kept up with City. I think it would have just ended up being City romp home. But now, because there's three teams, I think all of you guys will cause each other problems, and it's going to be a really good title race, man. So yeah, big up Arsenal, yeah, Gunners, yeah. Well done for getting the win, and let's get into the key events then. So you touched on the first Liverpool goal, probably the only blemish really on your performance, and obviously it was a bit of a misunderstanding, or you could say, or at least error from either Saliba and or Raya. Whose fault do you think it really was? Because I think we've got different opinions on this, judging by what we were saying to each other at the time. But who do you think should take more responsibility then in that case?
I'm going to try to say this without the rose-tinted glasses of Saliba's performances on.
Big prospect.
Yeah, shut up. I personally think that Saliba gave Raya enough time to come and get the ball, right? So in my mind, Saliba did a pretty good job of keeping Luis Diaz, who's a bit of a handful, off of him, and gave Raya enough time to come and get the ball. And you actually see in the replay that Raya actually stuttered. He stepped forward, then stepped back, and then tried to come again. And by that point, he came and it was too late. Luis Diaz had managed to get a foot on it. And even when he did come, he came out for the ball in such a haphazard, soft way. You know, there's no like coming and crunching the player. Because if it was me, if I was the goalkeeper and I'd had that hesitation and then tried to come back out and get it, I'm taking Saliba and Luis Diaz out. I don't care. I'm taking both of them out. I'm coming in with pure strength, arms flailing all over the place, and I'm getting the ball. Because it was a 50-50, I don't think, had he got the ball and Luis Diaz together, that he would have been like a penalty would have been given against him. There was still enough of Saliba in the way of it that he could have easily come and like taken both of them out and got the ball. So I personally put the blame on Raya, but obviously I have seen a lot of people saying, especially like it's the old 90s and early thousands defenders coming out and saying, just hoof it into Rosed. Obviously that's going to be the reaction of them because Jamie Carragher couldn't do anything else. That was all he could do. He's get his toe on it and smash it into the
trays.
Yeah, no, he's going to smash it into the top, right? Same with Gary Neville, same with a lot of the players that are coming out and talking about it, right? I personally think Saliba did enough to give Raya the option to come and get it. Yes, Saliba could have just cleared it out for a corner, but I don't think that's the way that Arsenal play, right? Because you could easily say that about a lot of risky things that we do. Like when Zinchenko comes and gets the ball in our own third and starts trying to spray one out this, there, and the air and everywhere else. That's just not how we play. We don't play simple route one football. We play risky football that sometimes comes off and sometimes doesn't come off. And I think that's just kind of part and parcel of a lot of the Pep style, the Klopp style, this whole like ball playing centre back, ball playing defender type of era that we're in right now. Is that defenders aren't going to do hoofing it into the back into Rosed anymore. That just doesn't happen. You're going to get defenders getting on the ball, playing it here, playing it there, playing what we would previously have called hospital passes, and that's just going to be, it's going to look horrible when it goes wrong. But for the most part, when it doesn't go wrong, it's going to give the team opportunities to do new, different things. And in my mind, I think Arteta has told the team the difference between letting a corner away or like having the ball in the hands of the goalkeeper is big enough to take the risk. He cares about that enough for his defenders, his left backs, his centre backs, his right backs to actually make those decisions in the moment. So, I've even seen people saying like, "Oh, Saliba should have given him a look." I'm just like, brother, you don't need to give him a look. He doesn't need to even speak the same language as you. If he's holding the ball like that and like pushing a defender off of him and you're 2 feet away, like logic tells you I'm a goalkeeper. I'm allowed to use my hands. Come out and bloody claim it. Don't just stand on the line. Like we've talked about Onana as well in the past, like being too static on his line and not being, commanding enough of his area, not coming out and trying to make himself big. It's the same goes for Raya, man. He's already got all of the people taking the piss out of him because he's quite a small goalkeeper and he gets packed in on corners. Like, mate, what are you trying to do? Like, Ramsdale would have come flying out, looking all clumsy, and probably would have got his body to the ball. But with Raya, it's just this man. He looks so soft. But I know you have a different point of view. Like, how do you think it was Saliba's fault?
No, like I agree with your point on Raya. I think obviously he should come out and claim the ball, and I don't think you should require someone like shouting or giving looks or anything like that to basically activate him to come and do what a goalie should do. But I think it's quite obvious that Raya isn't or hasn't been a front foot goalie for you guys. I think he was for Brentford, which is why it's so shocking now to see him kind of just completely break what we thought was his mold at Arsenal and not do some of the things I guess you guys probably bought him for, but he hasn't shown the ability to do that or the willingness to do that so far for you guys. So I understand. I think he should do that in a perfect world, but I do think Saliba's got the onus because he's closer to the ball. I understand what you're saying. I don't think you're wrong, but I would just question like, is that an aspect of defending that relies on a style of play? Like, I don't know. I think some of the things that those old school defenders, 90s defenders that you're taking shots at are saying, I actually think makes sense for this, because it's just like sensing danger and clearing the ball. Like, I understand at the beginning, maybe Arteta's said to the defenders, in certain situations we want you to hold, the attackers off the ball, shield the ball, goalie will claim it or whatever, and there's some patterns around it. But once you can see the indecision in Raya, just kick it out, man. Like, that's when I think you've got to have the instinct to just make that decision in the moment. Like, right, it's the same with when we've talked about playing out from the back. There's sometimes when the other team's game plan doesn't allow you to do that, or you're struggling, and you then have to make the executive decision when you're on the pitch to do something that's going to benefit the team. And I'm not going to go big on Saliba, because I think it's a bit of like inexperience, maybe, or just a bit of like maybe not sensing that danger at that moment, or being too trusting of Raya to do what you expect of him. But I think it's just something that, as he kind of gets some more minutes under his belt and continues to develop into the defender that we think he'll be, he'll make those decisions right, 99 times out of 100. But you even look at the Van Dijk one, right? We can make that same comparison with Van Dijk and Alisson. Those guys are seasoned players that everyone claims is super duper world class, best ever in Premier League era and all that kind of stuff, right? And your second goal is an even bigger effort from both of them, right? And you don't see that from them that often, right? Taking sly digs on them, but they obviously are and have been world class players for a couple of years, right? So it's not like completely crazy to expect them to handle that decision or handle that situation better, but they completely that up as well. And I think it's quite similar, that situation. Like Alisson, there's no need for him to come flying out like a ballerina and do tail flips and kicks and all this kind of stuff, like he's doing ollies on a snowboard. But for some reason he decides to do that, and Van Dijk shouldn't necessarily shield the ball and be indecisive, but he does, and then Martinelli plays them like a fiddle and picks their pocket, and boom, there you go, 2-1, and Liverpool are out of it, basically. So it can happen to anyone, but I think Saliba's got to hold a bit of corn.
No, he definitely needs to hold corn, because at the end of the day, he's part of the defence, right? He's part of the defence that lets in a goal. It's his clean sheet that's gone now as well. So I agree that Saliba deserves blame. I agree with you that, like, to a certain extent, you have to hold it, regardless of whether it's like primarily your fault or not. You have to hold some blame to it, right? Like, Saliba, as you say, in a perfect world, smashes that into the corner because he can see Raya's got no bloody backbone and isn't going to come out for it, right? So that's definitely something I hope will come over time. But if I have to choose between which I would hope to happen first, of Saliba getting that decision making to smack it into Rosed, or Raya learning how to come out and command his box, I'm going for the second one, because Saliba's already really good. I'm not going to say he's, great or whatever else people want to put on him at the moment, but he's really good. And Raya has a lot of things to improve upon. And that commanding of the box is probably the bigger one. For the second goal, like for the Liverpool goal, for the Arsenal second goal, I don't know I actually don't know where to place blame. And obviously you were a keeper growing up, so maybe you can give me a bit of kind of understanding here of what's going on. But I kind of feel like Van Dijk and his lack of or his lack of decision, his kind of indecisiveness about whether to come and just head it out or to let it bounce and kind of mess around with it, kind of almost forces Alisson to have to come out and get it. Because at that point, Alisson's like, you're not dealing with it, I'm going to come out. And I almost feel like, had Van Dijk not been a bit stronger to the Martinelli push, and not ended up like kind of bumping into Alisson, I actually think Alisson would have come out and dealt with that ball. I think the only reason why he wasn't able to deal with it is because he actually got like a knee from Van Dijk after Martinelli kind of gave him a little shove. So, I mean, from your perspective, who do you put the bigger blame on? Do you think it's Van Dijk, or do you think it's Alisson, or do you think it's just a mix-up that Martinelli played really well?
For both of these goals, I'm putting it on the defender slightly more than the goalie, and I'm not saying like 100% to 0, because I agree with you on the Raya point, right? The only difference with the Raya and the Alisson situation is I have lower expectations, or I've not seen Raya do that for Arsenal. So that's why I'm looking at Saliba even more, going, Raya's not the goalie to do that. If he did that with Ramsdale, like you said, and Ramsdale cocked it up, I imagine he would have cocked it up the way Alisson did, actually proactively coming for the ball, maybe missing it, or something happens and then he doesn't time his connection on the ball well. But with Raya, I don't like, he's just been so indecisive for you guys so far. Saliba surely needs to do that. I've got more expectation on him to stand up to
Yeah,
the
I get you.
pressure and do make the right decision than I do for Raya. With the Van Dijk and Alisson one, I think I give
You
even
both got
more.
a high bar for both of them.
Yeah, like I've got a high bar for both of them, but like you said, Van Dijk has caused Allison, I think, to make that cock up because he
Mm.
hasn't gone and been proactive on the ball, and then been kind of a bit soft and got pushed. The push from Martinelli, which wasn't like, it wasn't like a major. He didn't put welly into it. It was a little kind of
Yeah, it
shove.
wasn't a foul.
Sent
Yeah.
sent him flying, and then he kind of, I think he bumps into Allison, like you said, which sends him kind of off kilter, and then that whole drama happens, and then Martinelli picks their pocket. So I'd give even more blame on that one for Van Dijk. I think he held it on the post match. To be fair to him,
With a little
it
bit of
was like
salt in there, though. There was
like I
a
said
little
to
bit
you,
of salt in there.
it was a sandwich. Like he stuck his salt somewhere in the middle of like kind of taking accountability. But I think it was definitely more on him.
Hmm.
But yeah, both calamitous goals, man. Which to be honest, when you have that kind of game, which I don't think was a scrappy kind of, it wasn't a game you'd want to be the kind of poster boy game
Face of the
for
Premier
the
League,
Premier
yeah.
League. I think it was a good game. It's just a bit sad that like mistakes led to goals, because you want it to be won on like beautiful, brilliant moments. But I do think the way you guys played, I think was a really good advert for the Premier League, because it was, the tactics were on point, man. And Klopp's, even though I wouldn't say Klopp is like the most tactically astute manager, I don't think he's rubbish. I think he's got tactical nous, and he's
Yeah.
got
He
people on
makes
his
good
team,
changes
coaching
every now
staff.
and then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
generally he makes a lot of good decisions as well. It's not all man management, hugs and fist pumps. Like he's got some tactical nous about him, and Arteta just, he spun him. So I think it's just a bit sad that some of the goals were like, that kind of, they weren't the like beautiful strikes or anything like that. They were kind of a bit kind of shaky error leading goals. But yeah, man, those were they were interesting. It was funny to watch, man. I wasn't expecting the Liverpool kind of cock up. I wasn't expecting Saliba to be involved in their goal the way he was.
But
I
you can
would
see
kind
it
of
coming from
expect
Raya.
Raya. Yeah, I can kind of expect it Raya. And normally I think Gabriel had a really good game, by the way. I think it absolutely stinks that he's the one who gives up the own goal, because he had a really good
Yeah.
game and he had no part in that other
Loses
than
me FPL
trying to,
points as well.
yeah, tried to clear it
Stinks.
off the line, and it bounces off his face or his or his arm or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was it was fun to watch your second goal though, because to see Alisson and Van Dijk come up with those errors, you don't see it often, right? You don't.
Well, I also
It's
liked it
rare.
because like everyone puts them on a pedestal, and rightly so. They are really, really both really good players, right? Allison, I believe, is the best goalkeeper in the world. Van Dijk, I think, is one of the best centre backs in the world. So I definitely don't think they shouldn't be held in high regard. But the fact that like everyone talked about them and talks about them generally speaking as like untouchable almost, and it's almost devoid of all blame. It's kind of, I don't know if it's nice to see, but it's humanizing to see that they can make mistakes too, right? And that defending and goalkeeping like flawlessly all the time is not like just some god-given talent that they were, thrust upon. Um, and that they actually do need to be organized and make right decisions over and over again. So I mean, from my point of view, the whole like the two cup goals actually made it more Premier League for me. Right? If it was too perfect, I'd be like, oh, we're just getting into the Pep world again. I want to get back to like David Dunn doing step overs and then tripping over, or like trying to Travella it and tripping over. I need a bit more of that in the game, right? I need to see that these
It
guys
was
aren't
it
just
was
robotic beasts.
Yeah, well, it was a bit of a throwback top of the table clash in that way. I would agree. Let's get on to the Kanate red card then, because there's been some
Yeah.
chat around it being soft. Gabriel should have got similar treatment. Like, what do you make of it? Do you think it was fair for him to receive 2 yellow cards for the challenges on Havertz, and do you think
Mm.
Gabriel should have got a red card as well? What's your take on that?
Mm. It's a hard one. I'm trying to be objective here. If I'll just zone in on the Konate one first, right? The first yellow card that he had on Havertz, I think Havertz gamed the system there because Havertz was we mentioned it previously. Havertz was not looking at the ball for any of them. Any of the headers that came to him, he didn't look at the ball once. And usually, when a player is just looking at the man, the referee usually can see that and then kind of uses that against them. But he wasn't looking at the ball once. He repeatedly just looked at the defender and then just moved into the defender, not knowing where the ball was. And I think on that first occasion, Konate kind of got sucked into it because Havertz kind of threw his body into him, and then Konate is strong and just kind of threw him. I think it was kind of like, 6 of one, half a dozen of another. But at the end of the day, from a referee's perspective, I can kind of see why you might think it's yellow. Because if he did really impede him, I think he was not last man, but it was kind of like a break type opportunity. So I can kind of see why the ref might give that as a yellow. I do think it was soft though. The second one, I'm not hearing all of this. Oh, what's he supposed to do? Just get out the way, like the guy ran into him. No, man, you don't need to put your hands on someone's chest. It doesn't matter whether someone's running at you or not. And unfortunately, sometimes if they are running at you and you ain't quick enough to get out of the way and the ball seems to be in their possession, it's a foul regardless. There's plenty of times where fouls are given and the defender didn't really make a mistake per se. They just couldn't get out of the way in time or whatever else. So in my mind, the second one's a yellow. And I don't care what anyone says about, oh, he can't get out of the way, oh, he's run into him. Man, you have to get out of the way or you have to get the ball. You can do one of those two things, right? It's not like basketball where you can just kind of put your hands on your nuts and stand there as somebody charges into you. This is football. You've got to go and get the ball or you've got to get the hell out of the way. So from my point of view, second one's a defo yellow. And then the Gabriel one is where I probably am most objective. And I think, yeah, he probably could have got the same treatment, if I'm honest with you, because he definitely wrestled Nunes to the ground once. And he was putting in fouls here and there that could have added up to a yellow card before that as well. So I think on a different day, Gabriel could have held a red card as well, a 2 yellow red cards as well. So I can't complain all that much about that. But at the end of the day, that's football, man. And I think we still, regardless of all of that, deserved it. But I mean, I think you agreed, right? The first one was soft, right?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. Like, yeah, maybe it's a bit soft, but I didn't tally up how many fouls Konate had made before that. So maybe it was a case where the ref was just like, you've made 2 or 3 fouls. I warned you. You've done that. That's your next foul. You get yellow. Like, we don't know what they're talking to each other about. And yeah, sometimes it gets given. With the Gabriel stuff, I mean, come on, guys. Like, let's be honest. In a perfect world, the referee's 50-50 fair to everyone. But in the reality, we always know the home team will get the slight rub of the green. And that in that situation, you got a slight rub of the green. Gabriel's probably got slightly away with it, and that's just what it is. Let's not act like Anfield.
Yeah, they get them at Anfield all the time.
We haven't seen spooky decisions all over the shop. We were talking about it last week with Chelsea not getting 2 Stonewall pens. It happens, man. I don't think it had any bearing on the game. You guys are 2-1 up already. It would have just been Liverpool just wouldn't have had this excuse that they haven't lost a game with 11 men on the field because they were going to lose that game regardless. So I think it's a moot point. It's just people being a bit salty and getting the violins out. Let's quickly go through last goal. Trossard. Yeah, it was a decent goal, man. There were some beautiful moments in there. Some kind of calamitous defending as well. But what did you make of that goal?
I think it was a great goal. I definitely think, though, the way that Liverpool was set up kind of made it more possible. It reminded me a little bit of, unfortunately, what Maddison did to Saka when we played Tottenham.
Yeah.
He kind of just sent him to the shops, and then from there, calamity ensues, and they get a goal. And I think it was very similar. I think Trossard was generally really good. I don't expect a lot of defensive nous from Harvey Elliott. I've got to admit, he's probably about the same size as Trossard, to be honest with you. So it's a fair fight. But I don't think he offers very much on off the ball. So from my point of view, I'm not going to hold it against him too much. I'm not expecting him to come out like Sergio Ramos and just split Trossard in half.
He
But the
got
defending
roasted though.
afterwards, as you said, right, like the defending afterwards stank. Van Dijk is better, should be coming to the ball and closing him down. Allison shouldn't be getting nuts. I don't care if it takes a touch off of Van Dijk. He shouldn't be getting megged from that angle, especially because given like from that angle, there's not really anywhere else you can go because it was quite a close like tight angle. There wasn't a lot he could really do from there. So just making yourself big enough and getting something on the ball would have sufficed. And like we've seen Allison make saves like that over and over and over again, right? So a little disappointing, I think. If I was Allison, I'd probably be quite disappointed with how that turned out. Um, I mean, you can comment here, but it reminded me very much of an Onana type of save.
Oh, yeah, that's a bit harsh. Cheers for that one, mate. But no, no, I think it was a good goal. Trossard roasted Elliot, like you said. But yeah, you don't kind of expect too much of him. And then, I mean, on the defensive side anyway. And yeah, Van Dijk and Allison have just. Van Dijk's clearly knackered. That's the reason why he's struggling to close him down. And then, yeah, Allison's just had a clanger, hasn't he? Like, there's no way he should get nuts from there. You don't see it often. So yeah, we've just got to hold on to it. It's a bit of a collector's item. That I can't remember many goals that Allison's let through his legs. So yeah, no, but like I said earlier, I think it was well deserved. I think you guys deserve to win by a couple of goals. I think 2-1 would have flattened Liverpool. So I'm glad you guys managed to get it. And you know, a very similar thing happened to us at the Emirates early in the season. You know, it was. I actually think we did better at the Emirates than Liverpool did at the season. We could have scored that. Obviously, that Garnacho close one, and then you have a couple of injury time goals as well that make it seem. I think that was probably a bit harsh on us. A 3-1 loss, maybe 2-1 was fair. I think 3-1 against Liverpool was fair. You guys were a couple of goals better than they were. Let's get on to the player performances then, because there's a couple of surprises in there.
Yeah.
I'll quickly touch on the Martinelli one because I know I was a bit more passionate about this in before we start the app. I think people need to just give him a bit more respect, man. Like every time he plays Trent, he roasts him. Every single time. Right? And this reminds me of Rashford in his younger days. Every time he played Trent, he also roasted him. I think Rashford's changed as a player and he's maybe not as tenacious as Martinelli. But every time Martinelli comes up against Trent, he gets change out of him every single time. I think this one probably Trent was a bit rusty. I don't think he's been back from injury too much, so it's probably bad timing for him. But yeah, Martinelli had a big impact on this game, and I think he was one of your best players. I'm guessing you agree with that, Johns, or do you want to go straight on to the other two
No,
players who are a bit more surprising?
I fully agree with it. The only thing I want to say is like I've been saying this, man. Like everyone needs to. I know Martinelli hasn't been as good this season as he was last season, but he's really young, and he's got a lot of the talents and like the personality characteristics and just the way that he plays football that are really a throwback to a different era, and it's an era that I really miss. Right, like he runs at defenders over and over again. He does that kind of Luis Diaz where he never gives up on anything. Yes, he makes mistakes. Yes, he can get played out of the game sometimes if he doesn't have the right person behind him. All of these things can happen, but I think people do, just generally speaking, need to give him a bit more time and stop going so hard on him when he doesn't have perfect, outstanding games all the time. Because as you say, it's like bloody Groundhog Day when he plays against Trent. It's the same thing over and over again. We just see a replay of the exact same events where he's just rinsing Trent. I think there was a point at in the game where I WhatsApped you and said, like, Trent literally is defending like Casper again. Like Martinelli has just skinned him again, and Trent barely has put up a fight. And I don't know if I want to blame Trent more for that or just say that like Martinelli can be at times unplayable. But overall, I think Martinelli is always in my good books. Right, it's going to take a lot more bad performances and just kind of not showing up for me to be down on Martinelli. And I think given the circumstances of the fact that he's got a slightly different system to play with, and he's got Zinchenko who's not really supporting him. He's got he doesn't have a Xhaka anymore that's kind of coming in and helping him on the left hand side. All of these things I think add up to the performances that we see from Martinelli this season, and I'm just glad to see him get a bit more success. And I'll be honest with you, I was quite sad when he came off because he looked quite miffed, and I think he could have done even more damage. As much as Trossard and the other Reece Nelson and the other Dons that came on were good, I do still think Martinelli could have still found more success. So
yeah, no, yeah. I was saying that as well too, wasn't I? I was saying The next person we're going to talk about was probably, it was better off taking him off for Trossard. But yeah,
Yeah.
I also agree that I think Martinelli had a really good game, and I don't know if even patience is the word. Like, I feel like he's never been shocking for you. Even some of his
Mm.
lesser performances, he's still been decent. He still gives you work rate. Like you said, he's got a harder shift on that left hand side. I think Saka gets a lot more support on the right hand side. So I think he's got a harder task, but he takes it on because he's so tenacious and because he covers a lot of ground, and he's got elements of his dribbling, which is like they say on Filthy, a bit of a chaos baller. But
Mm.
he's more consistent than that, right? He's reaching levels where you see it more often than not. So yeah, just keep supporting him, and I think he's a diamond. Let's get on to the next couple of players then, because I think we weren't expecting this from them. So the first one's Havertz. What did you
Stone
make of
Cold
his?
Steve Austin, man.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Stone Cold Undertaker, Paul Bearer.
I
He
don't.
was up.
Yeah. I
He
don't know
was
how
up
to talk
against
about him, man.
he was up against Canate and Van Dijk, two pretty dominant physical centre backs, and he held his own. Man, what did you make of his performance? I know you're talking about WWE. He's going to be on Royal Rumble next this year or whatever, or WrestleMania. But genuinely, what did you make of his performance?
I mean, again, I don't know. I don't know really what to make of it, right? Because it's not traditionally a great performance, right? In terms of like what you'd expect from a player of that type of like position, right? He didn't get goals and a bunch of assists and all of that stuff, but I think he just causes problems, man. It's almost the same kind of thing I say about Gabby Jesus sometimes, right? Like, as much as people say he's not a finisher and whatever else, and he even himself comes out and says finishing is not his strong suit. He provides something that is really difficult to explain, which is he affects and impacts the defense so much more than a lot of other players. He's constantly getting stuck into people. He's making runs like very awkward, languid style. I don't think defenders always know what to do with him, where he's going to be. He's really hard to predict in general. He's like chaos in a different style. He's like chaos without speed, which is weird. So
Slow
I
mo
think from that
chaos.
point of view, like I think I don't think the game goes the same way it would have like it went if he wasn't on the pitch. I think that I don't know, like slow motion chaos that he comes with actually improved like the overall performance of the team and gave opportunities for people like Odegaard, people like Martinelli, Saka to get into the game a bit more. So from that point of view, I think I'm happy with his performance. Again, there are going to come times, even with the first goal, like man, just fucking slot it home, would you? Like what? I'm glad in the end that Saka got the goal and whatever else. But mate, like when I saw that bounce back off Allison, I was just like, oh man, I'm going to be
Yeah.
ranting about Havertz on the pod again. Um,
He was
so
good
yeah,
though,
it's
man.
like it's a
I
mixed
agree with
bag.
you.
It's a mixed bag.
Mm. Yeah, he was good, man. Like, I think he showed it, like you said, I think he showed elements of his game that we maybe haven't seen very much or consistently.
Mm,
He was. I know people have said previously that he can play the false nine. He can, go up top
yeah,
and try and link up play and stuff like that. But I think he showed a physical side of his game that maybe we didn't have belief in him, or that he had that side of his game. Like, I agree with you. It was completely like he was holding the ball up like Gabby Jesus, and causing a bit of mayhem, but in a slow kind of languid, not very frantic way. So I can understand why it was quite probably bamboozling for Canati and Van Dijk to understand what the hell was going on, because they were like getting wrestled suddenly 1 second, and then he was like drifting into different spots and running off the shoulder of people and causing trouble. So I think it was one of his better games. But Havertz is always going to be like this. Like, I don't think he's not an out and out striker. He hasn't
yeah,
got the create the obvious creative flair of like a Cam or something. He hasn't got the speed and trickery of a winger. He's just kind of a really undefined player, but he's
yeah.
got some traits in all of those kind of areas. And so every now and again, I reckon you're going to get performances like this where he will do really well and be very effective. It's just never going to be pretty, and it's never going to be the in style of footballer, I think. And because he's costs 60 plus 65 million or whatever it was, and he's like your highest paid player, he's always going to get it. He's going to get the drama.
I
He's going
think
to
he
get the
works really well as
expectation,
like a
but
rotation, like a tactical
yeah,
choice that you make against certain types of teams. I just can't see him playing and being great for us in every game. That's the issue that I've got
no,
with him, is that he's got a very specific style.
yeah. You've
German
paid,
Emil Heskey out here.
yeah, yeah. You've paid like 65 million for German Fellaini,
A
like someone
specialty.
who's
Yeah,
someone who's
exactly.
very very effective, but bloody hell, like I don't normally we don't see teams pay that kind of premium for that kind of player, but yeah, man, let's hope
It's
he
like
can just.
buying
I
Rory
feel
Delap for 60 million just to get his
yeah,
throw-ins. It's kind of like Havertz's. I don't know even what his throw-in, his
exactly. This is
version
what I
of
mean.
throw-in would be.
This is what I mean. It's not even like Rory Delap. You buy him knowing exactly what he is. Havertz,
Hmm.
I don't even think you know, but you know that he can be effective. So yeah, man. I hope for his sake, because I don't think he's a bad guy. As much as we've joked on the pod before and the donkeys and all the kind of giving him grief, like I don't think he's a bad geezer. So I hope
Yeah.
I hope he does all right and yeah, keeps performing well. And I think this has got to be the moment for who I think was head and shoulders above everyone else in this game. It was Big Jorginho. Did you see that coming? What the hell was going on? Like in a midfield full of, you
Hmm.
know, what Hungarian Steven Gerrard. I know he didn't play, but you've got people calling it Hungarian Steven Gerrard,
And
McAllister, Mac
World Cup
10.
winning McAllister,
Yeah,
yeah,
Mac 10, and big up Endo. We'll give him a shout out. He didn't play either. Curtis
Gravenberch.
Jones, the huge prospect. Yeah, Gravenberch and ex Pogba, all this kind of stuff. Decky Rice, who I'm not mocking, but he's gladly been
Tank.
getting all the plaudits, and I think he had a good game. Odegaard, no shoulder guard. Jorginho
Tough.
was the best player by far on that pitch. But like, did you see it coming? I repeat the question: did you see
No.
it coming?
The answer is a big fat no, because I've been probably his biggest critic, right? Like I can't remember what game it was, but there was a game where he came on and just gave a goal away. I can't remember if it was against Tottenham, who it was against, but he gave a goal away almost immediately, and I was just like, oh bloody hell, why have we brought this on? Thinking like, he's not even good enough to be a squad player at the time. That was what I was thinking. But that performance was unbelievable, man. It's like one of those unsung hero type performances of just dictating a game. And I don't want to throw these names into the barrel because he's obviously nowhere near as good as them. But it reminds me of like the Xabi Alonso, Michael Carrick, kind of Paul Scholes in his later days type of mold, where he just comes on to dictate play. You're not going to see him do a whole lot other than spray balls out here, there, and everywhere else, right? And I think he is the reason why we won the midfield battle, which I think was the key to winning the overall match, right? And I think, from some of the analysis I saw yesterday as well, he was also really important on the defensive side. So he was really critical to saying like, you know what, come and cover this guy. I'm going over there, right? And he was dictating in more ways than one. It wasn't just on the ball, dictate here, dictate here. He was also apparently orchestrating some of our defensive shape as well, which is something I never saw from him. When I think of Jorginho, I don't think defensive at all, or let's say defensively capable. I don't think of that. I know that he's not a super attacking kind of midfielder, but I don't think of him as like a defensive general. But from that performance, man, he seemed like he could be the key to unlocking like our midfield, right? Because we've obviously suffered since Xhaka got left. Havertz doesn't appear to be in that mold or able to do that mold consistently. And I think that was one of the key kind of drivers of all of our performance last season. So if Jorginho can come in and do this more often, then he could really be the key. And we could say, Havertz will play you at a false nine every now and then when Gabby Jesus is undoubtedly injured. We'll play you for certain games here and there. But Jorginho, you are now the fixture in our midfield. You are the 8 that's going to sit next to Declan Rice and Odegaard. And there was something great about the whole Odegaard Jorginho thing, because I really felt like Jorginho gave Odegaard the space and time and kind of took some of the responsibility off his plate in terms of orchestrating and in terms of dictating tempo, which I think Odegaard is not always very good at, right? Like he plays, in my mind, in one way, similar to like an Ozil type. Like he's a sometimes seen as kind of a luxury player. And I think he needs people doing the dirty work next to him, people like Declan Rice that are clamping people and getting the ball and, playing simple balls, but also that dictator next to him, that Jorginho to say, you know what, I'm going to stay here, you go forward, I'll play balls into space here, there, and everywhere else. I'll try and, create some space for you in the midfield. And I think that that's really the benefit of a player like Jorginho, is that maybe he's not going to look all that great, but he will help the people around him look a lot better. And I think, given the quality that we've got in our team, we need some people that are going to be the glue. We need the Gilberto Silvas. We need those kinds of players that aren't going to be the star of the midfield. In 20 years, they're not going to go down and everyone's not always going to remember them first, but they were critical in allowing our stars to play and fulfill their potential. So again, I'm going to need to see it a lot more. And I still don't think Jorginho is a long-term solution. But if he can do that consistently against high-quality teams, then I'm all good with it. I'm happy to see it, because I think he's a good lad as well.
Yeah, no, he's everything you said is spot on. I don't think anyone saw it coming, but I don't think at the same time, I don't know if everyone's like completely shocked. We've seen glimpses of it at Chelsea. He was obviously a pivotal player for Napoli. Pep wanted him, a bunch of big teams wanted him for a lot of the things that you just said. Like, he's obviously very tactically astute. He's not the most physical, dominating, athletic player, but he's obviously got a really good football brain and he can carry out instructions, because it was clear that that's what Arteta was trying to get you guys to do, and not all of your players were able to implement it straight away, and he was that person that was on your defence, on your other midfielders, instructing them, supporting them when they needed it. And big up to him, because he's also saved you while Chargie's been missing, because he stepped in and done a lot of what I think previously you guys have really appreciated from Thomas Partey, and you obviously haven't had him available for whatever reason. So yeah, Jorginho's done really well, and I think he was, everything you said, man. He was massively important to that win, and he got you guys over the line, both with his actual performance on the pitch, and as well as kind of helping and supporting the team along the way. I think he had a great performance. But let's get
He's
into
the most decorated player in our whole team, by the way.
It's true. It's no surprise, right? He's won
shortlist
Champions
out here,
League. He's won Champions League. Yeah, he's won trophies. I think he's won the Euros with Italy and stuff. Like he's done stuff. So it's no surprise really that he comes up clutch in some big moments. But yeah, let's see if he can keep it going. Let's get on to kind of, I guess, one of the biggest talking points of the game, apart from the actual performance and stuff we've just analysed, but it's the whole celebration police. We're back here again, where the police are back in town. So obviously there are a couple of things that were going on after the final whistle that caught Jamie Carragher's anger and attention, after the match on commentary. So the first one was Martin Odegaard calling over the club photographer from the All or Nothing series, the fella that they brought in, the fella they brought in to motivate the team. I think it was against Spurs in that season. Started taking his picture in front of the clock end, I believe, and Jamie Carragher wasn't a big fan of that. Then you had obviously the whole Arteta watch, which just seems to always be going on, checking what he's doing on the touchline. He obviously did a bit of a 50-yard sprint in his loafers, somehow managed to stay on his feet.
His AstroTurf loafers that somehow don't allow him to slip,
secret soft ground studs on the bottom of his Clarks. But yeah, he was running up and down the touchline. And then the thing that honestly I love, I don't mind any of this stuff, but the thing I love the most is, at the end, giving it the Klopp celebration imitation with the ooh, ooh, ooh. He did it really quick though, like you said. It was a very very efficient one. Very efficient one. But he did that, which I love a bit of S-housery. So what do you make of this whole celebration police? It seems to always come out when Arsenal are doing something in particular. But what's your take on it? Do you think they're being fair, or do you think it's just Jamie Carragher being a bit sour?
I mean, do I think they're being fair? No, because they're usually not, right? I think it's pretty clear that certain pundits and certain kind of broadcasters have their favourites, right? That's clear to me. And I personally think, I mean, from a fan perspective, if you take away all of the pundits and saying this, that and the other, I did think it was like, all right, we're going a little bit too far, right? And when I say that, what I mean is like if this happened back in the day when like it wasn't all televised and we weren't seeing every single move, I'm sure that happened plenty of times before, right? Like there's a funny video coming out of Klopp when they drew 2-2 against West Brom, getting all the players to link arms and do this in front of their fans, right? And I don't remember anyone like calling him out for doing that, right? So I think from that point of view, like, man, just let it go. If this wasn't televised, no one would care. It wouldn't be like, you know, headlines tomorrow about Arteta doing this, that, and the other, or Odegaard taking a picture, right? Like people celebrate in all sorts of ways all the time. It's a win over a large rival in the league, right? They're ahead of us. They've beaten us twice in a row before this, right? In the Cup and in the Premier League. Oh no, wait, did they beat us? They drew against us,
No,
right?
you drew, yeah, you drew.
Yeah, we drew. They drew and then they beat us, right? And they beat us quite convincingly in that cup tie. So from that point of view, I'm just like, you know what? Why can't we celebrate, right? When Mourinho was running down the touchline doing knee slides, everyone said, we love this. This is football, right? He's the special one, whatever else. When Arteta runs about and does this, that, and the other, we say, oh, he's doing too much. Oh, you know, he's making a meal out of it. Oh, it's just a show for the fans. It's just like pick one, man. Like just because you don't personally like a manager because he doesn't fit into your mold of what you want a manager to be and he hasn't proved it and this, that, and the other, man, just give him a break. He's doing like really important work with Arsenal, right? We absolutely stank before this, and we even stank with him for a while. And he's managed to finally kind of turn it around to a point where we don't stink. And I'm not even going to say that we're good, just to the fact that we don't stink anymore.
No, you're
He
good.
should rightfully get some plaudits, right? Everyone shouldn't be running all over him and like calling out every single thing that he says all the time. He handles interviews relatively well, right? The whole Zinchenko Ben White issue that came up, he handled that well in his own special way, right? He doesn't call players out and, you know, do this, that, and the other. Doesn't go on the Forest Green, you know, Rovers, Troy Deeney rants and stuff like that. He's a respectful guy. He's brought through English talent and other, you know, Brazilian talent and all these different young players into the squad. You know, he's given a lot of people chances. Like, give him a bloody break. So from my point of view, as a fan, it's a little over the top, a little bit. Just the fact that I saw it, I was just like, all right, guys, we can do this when we win a title or something like that. But at the same time, I don't think any of these pundits, especially ones that spit on children, I don't think anyone has a right to come out and say, oh, you know, you're celebrating too much, or oh, you can't take pictures of the lifelong photographer for Arsenal in front of the you know, the clock end. I think it's mental, because when he's going mental and when Liverpool are pumping it, he's loving it. He doesn't say anything about it when they beat bloody Red Star Belgrade in some crap cup, and then they start pumping it in the away end. No one's chatting anything. We've just beaten Liverpool, for God's sake, 3-1, and we apparently played them off the park. Let him bloody celebrate, for God's sake.
Nah, yeah, it's the celebration police stuff always just does my nut in. I think just all right, yeah. Is it a bit Is it a bit corny? Is it a bit cheesy? Taking a picture, sure. Maybe I wouldn't do it myself, but it's not hurting anyone. They're not like they're not going premature celebrating the title win or anything like that. You know, they've just got a big win. Let them do it their way. I don't think it's disrespectful to anyone. It's not a big deal. And the Arteta stuff is just, we've talked about it before. He's just not a media darling. People love Klopp in this country. I get it to a certain extent. He's definitely got more charisma than Arteta or Ten Hag or some of our other managers in the league. But it's just too far. They need to chill out on Arteta. He's just celebrating a big win. And, you know, like I said, he deserves credit for staying on his feet, like I said, and let's just leave it there. Let's go into all right, let's do this one really quickly. It's a yes or no. You're back in the title race now, yeah?
Yeah, but we're on the fringe of it.
All right, but that's a yes. All right, Arsenal for the title. Go on.
I'll give it.
Let's go.
No, don't put words in my mouth like that.
Jonty guaranteed it. Arsenal win the title.
Third favourite in the league to win it, mate.
All right, you can try and clean it up, but we've got it on tape. Let's go to the United game then. Man United 3, West Ham 0.
The United derby. Oh, man.
Yes, we won it. We're the best United. Like I said on the last pod, it's a disgrace that we're even in the conversation with these other Uniteds, but you know, it is what it is. We are where we are. But 3-0, it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was a tonking like I was hoping and predicting, but I think we were value for a 3-0 win. I
Convincing,
think
yeah.
they had a lot of shots, 22 or something like that shots, but I can't think of too many that were super dangerous. I know Emerson had a 1-on-1, which he somehow like sliced and skied and put it nowhere near the
Yeah.
goal, and but he's a left back,
Nunes
so
did.
we'll allow him. But yeah, I didn't really feel like we're in too much danger. I felt like it was a decent performance. I think they were good and bad. We'll go through the key events in a bit, but obviously, we got some goals from our youngsters. Got a really nice picture, which I'm sure will be every Man
There you
United's
go.
every
Get
Man
Martin
United
Odegaard
fans.
on the case, mate. He'll take a better
exactly.
one.
Yeah, exactly. Next time, get Odegaard there. Come on, Sky, get him on freelance. And
Photodegaard
then
is what I'm going to call him from now on.
Photo Odegaard, that's class. And then the only blemish though is obviously Lissandro is now out for, they're saying, a minimum of 8 weeks. What's that? 2 months.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit of a glass half full, half empty situation because he's obviously out for those 2 months. That's not good at all because I think we've actually looked so much better with him back. It's quite clear that, and I've said it to you before, but it's like bang my head against the wall. Like what he was at the beginning of the season was not who he is as a player. He wasn't what we saw last season. It's not what we've seen in these last 4 games that he's been back. Right? Like I think he was one of our best performers against West Ham on Sunday. I think he is that defense, right? Like he does so much, and he
Heart and
carries it
soul of it.
honestly. Yeah, and he's got the techers, like the balls. I know he gave the ball away a few times, and we joked about it, like the commentators curse when I was bigging him up, but
Yeah.
more times than not, the passes he makes are so critical. He basically does a defender's job and kind of a Jorginho's job when it comes to breaking the lines and keeping the ball ticking over. There's no one else in our defense that can do that. So it's a huge blow to lose him. I'm counting my lucky stars though that he's not out for longer, because when that happened, I thought, oh god, it's probably an ACL. If that's the case, he's probably out until like next year, or he's out until like the middle part of next season. But hearing that it's the MCL, I think it's the medial cruciate ligament that he's sprained or strained or whatever, and he's only out for 2 months is probably the best result we could have got. But yeah, it took a big shine off the result, but overall I'm super happy with it. We're into 6th now, so yeah, it's a super positive one. So yeah, we'll start off with the let's chat about the Højlund goal, because yeah, what was it? I sent you the stat. It's like 4 in 5, and then you reminded me that it was 0 in 14 before that. But we won't talk about that. But he, man, I thought that was a great goal. Like the way he took it, he sent Souček to the shops. I know it's probably not that hard to send Souček to the shops, but he twisted him up. I don't know if it was it Souček or Gerd. I can't remember, but
I think it was
whoever
Souček.
it was.
It was a big lanky don.
Yeah, whoever it was, he absolutely done him. And then the finish was class on his weaker foot. It was so quick. It was all like such a quick motion, like between him skinning Souček.
It was almost like one motion.
Yeah,
it was so quick. Motion on a video game.
Yeah, it was so quick. It just went from his foot, like from his left foot cutting in to his right foot in one motion. Boom, bottom corner, and Areola had no chance. And Areola's a good goalie, so yeah, man, I was really happy for him. Not sure about the air guitar celebration, but back on the celebration police. But yeah, no, it was big for him, and I feel like he's building some steam. He's getting a bit more confident. Everything's not just about fighting the defenders, doing up wrestling like we talked about earlier. He's getting more involved in the game, and I think that front three of Garnacho, Højlund, and Rashford is starting to cook a little bit. I think the stats over the last 4 games or something, we've got 12 goals or something like that. We've got a bunch of goals, and they're all coming from those guys. So that's really good, because they've been seriously underperforming up until then.
I think it also helps when you've got, like, we always talk about injuries and this, that, and the other. And for certain teams, people play them up, right? Like with Tottenham, they're like, oh my God, they've got so many injuries and they're playing so well still. But with you guys, like when you see Casemiro come back, when you see Martinez come back, you see the rest of the team start functioning a lot better in general. And I think it's important to remember that an attack is not just playing by themselves, right? They've got, they've got 8 players behind them that have to also perform well and give them opportunities, right? And I think you even saw it with Bruno's. Like Bruno played a lot better as well. I think there's a freeing to it when you get confident, capable players playing next to you. I feel like it makes such a big difference. So, I mean, my question to you is going to be on the Højlund goal, right? So, class finish. How many goals do you reckon he ends the season on? Premier League goals.
I reckon he'll get double digits. He might if he gets a real burst from now on, and he starts to build up some more confidence. I wouldn't be shocked if he got like 12, 13, pushing 15 goals in the league.
That's a good tally.
I don't think that's that bad, and I think that's probably about par for the course. Like,
it's more than we would have expected scores, to be fair.
Yeah, but I would say Højlund's not that kind of linker of play, and he's a striker. He's just not there yet because he's still young. But I reckon when he reaches his, prime of his career, and if he is able to, kind of fulfill his potential, I think he'll be a 20-goal a season striker. I don't know if he'll reach like the heights of Salah's and Haaland's and all those freaks who score so many goals, but I reckon he'll be he'll be more than good enough for United. And the way strikers are these days, you see a lot of wide forwards scoring a lot of goals too, so they're not like solely on them. I think he'll be a big contributor. But yeah, great goal, man. Super happy with it. And I think he's, fingers crossed, he's going to keep this form going. Let's get into the Garnacho goals then, and the celebration. We're back on the celebrations again.
Back on the celebrations.
Celebrations.
It's Christmas time, mate. Get the
exactly. Yeah, I'm more of a quality street man myself. But Garnacho 2 goals. First one was a bit fortunate. He kind of like almost trips over, then swings the left foot at it, takes a slight deflection, goes in past Fabianski. Wasn't the greatest goal. But I mean, he scores quite a lot of these goals. I don't know if he's just got the knack. There are a lot of his finishes. Yeah, there's something. He's a bit. He scores some jammies. He scores some beautiful goals, like the Puskas that we talked about last week. But and the Galatasaray goal, which were class. But he's also, there are quite big chunk of his goals that I think come from deflections or kind of like not a clean strike, and that one was one of them. Celebration was funny. We'll get into that in a minute, and then the third goal was decent as well. But let's get into the celebration then. Unless you want to talk about the two Garnacho goals or remind me about what I felt
like the celebration actually was the best part of all of the goals that he scored. To be fair, just kind of
I was opening it. Yeah, I was opening it up for you to remind me of my comments last week about Mainu being a bigger prospect than Garnacho.
I'm gonna let you stew on that one. I'm gonna let you stew on it, mate. Give it a couple more weeks because he might be absolutely crap next week. Who knows? So I'm not going to talk too quickly.
All right. Well, I served it up for you. You didn't want to take it. That's your fault. The celebration then. So, God. It's got to be in the title of this pod for sure by the time we do all that stuff, because we talk about it so much. Keyword SEO and all that. But he jumps over to the advertising board, sits on it. There's a lot of conjecture out there. Is he taking a piss out of Kudus because of what obviously
is him? A Ronaldo celebration.
Kudus did it to us in the reverse fixture earlier in the season, but a lot of people have reminded us that Ronaldo was the originator of this sitting on the advertiser hoarding celebration. So, and the whole story behind the Ronaldo one was Angel Di Maria, the biggest snake of all, came out and said that the only advice he'd give to Garnacho is that he should stop doing Cristiano Ronaldo celebrations and maybe consider doing a Messi celebration. So I don't know, man. I feel like if it was because of Kudus, I'd respect it. Like either way, I'm gonna respect it because I love that bit of S-housery. But if he did it to Di Maria, I don't know, man. Garnacho might be that guy, and I might have to think about the Mainu Garnacho chat just for that alone, because there's nothing more in this world than I hate than a player that played for us who came out and chatted grease about us and was a big old snake about it. And Di Maria is one of the top snakes that we've got, and for him to come out and almost kind of son Garnacho and go, look, you're wrong for doing all this stuff, when I don't think people should care, right? If Ronaldo is his idol, which is possible, right? Remember, he might be playing for Argentina, but he was born in Madrid, in Spain. So he might have an Argentinian mother and he might, play for the Argentinian national team, but he grew up and was born in Madrid. Ronaldo was there cooking for like 5, 6, 7 years when he was growing up.
And he plays for Man United.
Ronaldo
he doesn't play for Barcelona. He plays for Man United, where Ronaldo is also a major legend despite Piers Morgan interviews.
Exactly. And he had some time together with Ronaldo. We don't know if Ronaldo's become like kind of a bit of a mentor to him or whatever. Like, I don't know, the whole like getting on to Garnacho for copying Ronaldo's celebrations, I think it's not that deep, man. Like this celebration stuff, whether it's celebrating a win and doing the photography stuff or the Arteta celebrations or just players doing celebrations, unless they're doing some sort of like fascist salute or something like that, I don't get why people are so on them, right? I think you just let them celebrate. I thought that was beautiful. We talked about it earlier. The three youngsters sitting on the advertising board. It's on every United fan content creator's Twitter cover photo, on every YouTuber's cover art, like you said last week. It's just good vibes, man. And the bit of S-housery to take the piss out of Kudus or potentially a fingers crossed at Di Maria. I rate it, man.
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
No, I agree with you, man. Like we've got to remember, this is like what's he, 19? Like,
yeah, 19. Yeah,
he's 19 years old. Like, have you seen 19-year-olds these days, man? Of course they're going to be idolizing Ronaldo. They're going to be doing all these kinds of things. And to be honest with you, as much as I love Kudus, I don't think Garnacho knows all that much or pays that much attention to him.
This is what I'm thinking.
I think he's full on Ronaldo every day, all day compilations. I think he's on Twitter every day watching Ronaldo compilations. Yeah. Exactly. So I personally think it was a Ronaldo. I think he was copying Ronaldo, and I think there's also a bit of rebellious like nature to Garnacho, because I swear there was like some stories coming out when the World Cup was going on that like people in the Argentina squad are mocking him because he like prefers Ronaldo over Messi. And I don't think he gives a toss. I think he's, you've seen some of the hairstyles he puts out there. I don't think he really cares what anyone cares about what he's doing. So I think he's just a young geezer having fun, scoring goals, which aren't, haven't been all that easy to come by this year for United. I think he's well within his rights to go and celebrate in whatever fashion he wants to. And I think there was actually something quite good and like kind of heartwarming about the fact that it was the three youngsters sat together. And if I were Adidas, I would take an opportunity right now to stick some sort of advert out there, the same way that Nike does it sometimes as well, with like famous events that their athletes do. If I were them, I'd be putting that over billboards everywhere. I'd be putting adverts on television about it, because I think that was like, depending on how things go in the future, that could be like something we look back on and be like, oh, that's like, the dream team. It's like the OKC Thunder when they had Durant, Harden, and Westbrook at the same time. Like, you didn't know it then, but every single one of them turned out to be a baller. So I think everyone should just shut up, let people celebrate, especially when they're 19-year-olds and they're not, in someone's face, like giving them the big one or doing anything crazy like that, right? They're not Neil Mope, right? They're not getting bloody... they're not doing those kinds of things. So we don't need to do that, right? So I think from that point of view, just let the guy celebrate, stop waffling all this rubbish. And I think personally, if he's doing it against Di Maria, good.
Yeah,
he will go up in my estimations too, because Di Maria can't be chatting all that breeze when he wasn't even that good for you, right? He was good for everybody else, but he weren't good for you. So he needs to stop talking about Man United and talk about the clubs where he actually played well.
Yeah, hold that angle, Di Maria, you massive.
That's
a personal message for you, mate.
But
yeah, no, I agree, man. I agree. Big up Garnacho, man. Don't take it as a slight. I'm waiting for. It was worst timing ever for that clip to go out, like a day after Garnacho scored 2 and stuck it to one of our dirtiest snakes in our recent times. Those are all plus points. So yeah, I was very tempted to just pull that clip and not put it out and act like I never said that. But yeah, it's no slight on Garner. I think he's going to be a good player for us, and he's already really, he's really earning his stripes already in this short time that he's been in the first team. And I like him on that right wing, man. I think he's super effective there, and that might be a bit of a solution we've found with old Antony stinking it up every time he touches the pitch. Don't even let him touch a pitch. Garner on the right-hand side, Rashi on the left. I think it works. Another player who I think deserves a bit of a shout-out, and you mentioned it earlier, is Bruno, man. I thought he had a good game. I thought he didn't do anything like majorly outstanding. I think he got an assist for the first Garnacho goal, but I think he was really measured. And to be honest, I think that's the best compliment you could ever give Bruno Fernandes, that he was measured and that he was composed. Because the only thing I could ever criticize him about, apart from obviously rival fans get onto him for being a bit of a moaner and a bit of a ratty player in the ref's face and all that kind of stuff, which I get it. If I was a rival fan, I'd hate that from a rival team's player. But it's more from our side as a United fan about his kind of scattergun Hail Mary style that he often gets
Yeah.
into when things are not going well. So the fact that he was really composed, the fact that he was linking the play, I think it was a massive impact on the team. I think it leads to what you said: missing Casemiro, missing Lisandro Martinez, missing Luke Shaw, missing players around him that give him that stability and that also have got the cojones. Like Casemiro's won everything. Varane's won everything. Lisandro Martinez has got that. He's won a World Cup. So I was, about to act like he hasn't won anything big, but he's won a World Cup. So, there's players around that I think Bruno can look at and say they're on my level or they're better than me even, right? Like, and it gives him the freedom to be able to go and express himself in a more impactful way. And I think, he was good. I don't think it was like a 9, 10 out of 10, but I think he had a solid 8. And like I said, I think the way he played and the way he was so measured was massively beneficial to us.
Yeah.
What do you think of it? You think he did well?
I agree. I think Bruno has showed you the best football and the worst football. And I think if I'm a Man United fan, I'm just like, mate, can you get it somewhere in the middle? Like, I don't need to get a 10 out of 10 and then a 2 out of 10 the next day. I just need you to give me a solid 7 or 8 every week. Get the assists, get the goals, do all of the contribution that you usually do, but with just less variance to be absolutely terrible. So from that point of view, like, I don't want to come out and see Bruno like being the star of the show all the time, because that means that they're relying on him too much to do everything. And I agree with you. I think Bruno, calm and composed, is what you would want to see from him, right? Like, he's shown you unbelievable greatness and unbelievable terrible performances, right? But I want to see some consistency. I want to see him, if he's going to be the captain of your team type of vibe, one of the players that's carrying your team through and a major like figure in the dressing room. You got to be dependable. You got to be putting in performances that are good over and over again, right? You can't slip and give absolute stinkers every now and then. So I think it's good for him. I agree with you on the whole point of like looking around and seeing players that are on his level, because I think Bruno is that kind of guy. I think he looks around sometimes and thinks, who the fuck am I playing with? Why have we got Maguire behind me? Like, McTominay, who are you? Why are you next to me? Like, you aren't good enough to lace up my boots, mate. So I think from that point of view, getting people like Casemiro back, getting Luke Shaw back, even with Kobbie Mainoo, I think Bruno would probably look at him and say, you know what, actually, I've got some respect for you. Even though you're a youngster, you're obviously good. You've shown already that you've got, the capability to do good things. So I think even with those kind of young players next to him, like Garnacho and Kobbie Mainoo, I think he's definitely got a lot more respect for that, because they're also young and he can mentor them in certain ways. Bruno Fernandes can't mentor bloody McTominay. McTominay's far too old for that. He might even be older than Bruno. Who knows? Like, all right. So from that point of view, I think Bruno needs to be surrounded with players that allow him, in the same way that Odegaard as well. We can't be relying on Odegaard to dictate tempo, to set up goals, to defend, to do all of these different things. Like, as much as De Bruyne does, he does a lot of stuff and he's kind of the benchmark for this kind of player. If Bruno's really good at like whipping balls in and he's really good at spraying balls here and everywhere else, let him bloody focus on that, man. Stop asking him to do everything for the team. Same thing for Odegaard. So I can't say I'm happy, because I do think Bruno is a bit of a rat, but if I'm a Man United fan, I'm gonna be very like more pleased with that performance than like some of the standout performances I would have seen from him previously.
Yeah, no, I agree. Let's hope for my sake and United fans' sake he can keep these kind of performances going, because I think he's our creative outlet. So if he manages to just harness some of his creative skills, and plays with a bit more composure like he did this past Sunday, then yeah, I think we'll be in business as long as we keep some of the other players that we've got back fit. And hopefully when Lissandro comes back, he can pick up where he left off. And then I think we've got a decent second half of the season coming our way. Yeah, so obviously off the back of this game now, United are 4 points behind Spurs, I believe, 6 points behind Villa in fourth. Got to be the target, to be honest. We're not finishing any higher than that. Even that, it's going to be a struggle. But yeah, we're back in the Big Six.
Hey.
Yeah, exactly, about time. And yeah, we've
minus goal difference though. Still,
we're still
need
minus.
a couple,
Yeah, somehow.
couple
I
more
think
goals
we're
and get into the green.
-1. And I mean, even the fact that we're minus is ridiculous. We literally scored 4 like in midweek against Wolves. We scored 3 this week. If we could just cut out some of the shoddy defending, and I don't know if you know if it's like shoddy defending. It's just like kind of bottling it a little bit and letting teams back in. Then I think we'll be back in the black when it comes to our goal difference in no time. But yeah, we're back in the Big Six. So who's it? The fifth is Tottenham. Yeah, like I said, 4 points behind them, 6 points behind Villa. It's a bit of a shame Villa managed to win against Sheffield United and absolutely batter them. Spurs obviously dropped points at Everton, but they're about to get Heung-min Son back because he's South Korea sadly flopped, as you said, Johns lost 2-0 to Jordan. So although semi-final, I don't know if that's really a flop, but yeah, East Asian countries, by the way, hang your head in shame, man. Japan and South Korea, 2 of the favourites, out at the semi-final and earlier stage. So yeah, we're going to have most likely a Middle Eastern winner of the Asian Cup. Hopefully Qatar. That will be my bet. But yeah, Son's going to come back to Spurs. So you should expect Spurs to do better and pick up some of their form now that they're going to be able to link Son back with Maddison. But they've had some tightish games recently, so I don't think it's out of the realms of possibility for them to drop more points. I think this next game against Villa is going to be the real key for us. If we're able to get a win in that, cut that down to 3 points, I think we're in with a real shot. We will probably have to be flawless, but I think we're in with a real shot at getting fourth. And then, I mean, if we somehow come out of the season with fourth, honestly, it will be absolutely. I wouldn't put it past us. We've done this kind of stuff before. Looked absolutely horrendous for a big chunk of the season. Somehow managed to turn things around and get fourth. But yeah, it would be. I'd say, in your famous words from earlier, we're probably third favourites still to get fourth, some way behind Tottenham and Aston Villa. But I think we're in the shout. We're the Arsenal of the top 4 race, I'd say. I think we've got a chance. We've got a chance, man. But we're going to have to really
end up coming 8th.
Exactly, which means we'll come 7th or 8th and fall out of it completely. But yeah, if we can win some of these fixtures against teams in and around us, we've obviously got Villa away. Our away record against the bigger teams is not good at all. So I don't make us favourites for that at all. But we'll get into the previews in a bit. But we've got Liverpool at home, Arsenal at home, City away. Not really banking on that. But then we've got Newcastle at home. We've got some games where we can get points off teams in and around us. And hopefully that will help propel us up there. But what do you reckon? Do you reckon we're in with a chance, or do you reckon it's? I think it's a bit of an outside pitch.
I think you're in with a chance. I think, to be honest with you, like I think this is what separates the adults from the children, right? The back end of the season is difficult, right? Because a lot of these teams are in and around that area haven't got the squad depth to excel in all competitions that they're in at the same time. So you typically see them kind of like, depending on how far they go in the cups, they tend to kind of drop off a little bit in the end of the league, and you have the teams that have real quality and like some depth tend to pick it back up. So like with Liverpool last season, for example, right? They managed to benefit from a lot of teams around them kind of like petering out, and they managed to come quite close to getting top 4, right? And I think this season, it just looks like basically Newcastle have been replaced by Aston Villa / Tottenham. And I think we're in a similar-ish kind of race to last year, right? Like West Ham, I don't think anyone have expected that. I think Chelsea are fully in the mud. I don't expect them to really come back any higher than they are right now. Brighton haven't. I mean, Brighton have been up and down. So I think really, like, I would give you better chances than Tottenham, right? So I think as much as like Son's coming back, also think that like with Ange, you get not just a new manager bounce, but you also get a new style bounce where no one really knows how to play against you properly because they've never really seen the way that you play before. So you can catch a lot of teams off guard. I think kind of like Arsenal last season as well, right? Like people were like, oh my God, where did this come from? And now everyone's just low block, low block, low block. And no, we're not getting past anyone. So I think from what I'm seeing with Tottenham, they are obviously still able to score a lot of goals, but I don't know if teams are going to set up the same way to play against them now that they've kind of figured out and seen what Ange has got to do. So I think it's between you and Villa. And I think there's a possibility that Unai prioritizes a cup over the Premier League to his own detriment, right? Because I think, what is it? What European competition they're in?
They're
Is
in the
it
Conference
Europa?
League. Yeah,
Conference,
Europa
sorry.
Conference, yeah.
And you know that he loves a trophy. He loves a European trophy, whether it's the Europa or if it's the conference. I'm sure he'll be up for getting into that. So I think there's a chance that you sneak it, right? Like if you can get some big results against us and against some other teams in and around there, I'd give you, I'd say your second favourites to get that top four, that fourth place. I honestly, I know I'm an Arsenal fan, so everyone's going to say I'm biased, but I'm not liking what I'm seeing from Tottenham recently, man. And I think you guys can only get better.
Yeah, no, I do think we will get better, and I think the Liverpool comparison from last year is probably a really good one. Obviously, Liverpool had loads of injuries at the beginning of last season as well, struggled for form, had a real dip, and then suddenly managed to like pick things up once they got some more players back and they started to hit a bit more form, and then they made a real charge at top four. I think in the end, United and Newcastle finished a little bit ahead of them, but there were points where they were cutting the gap to quite a narrow margin between us and them, and I see it probably going a similar way. We'll either just be able to get over that line and probably need to rely on Villa and Spurs to have a bit of a blip and bottle it slightly, and we'll need to like have similar form to Liverpool did last season. But I actually see Spurs being a bigger threat to this, though, for the exact reasons that you just said, because Villa are still in the Europa League, Conference League, sorry, and they should really be winning that. So they should be going deep in that until the end of the season. I think they're still in the FA Cup, if I'm not correct. So they've got their hands in more pies, whereas I think Spurs are out of everything. They're out of the League Cup, they're out of the FA Cup. They obviously won in Europe this season. They've just got the league, and they're getting players back. And I think I agree with you to a certain extent. Teams are going to start figuring them out and start to play with specific tactics to counteract what Ange has been doing. And I think they'll still go through their injury troubles, and they don't have the deepest squad. So I think it will still be a rocky road for them. But I think if anyone's got a chance of kind of taking a bit more of a dip, I think it's going to be Villa, just because they'll probably be in a lot of competitions and they might just draw a few more games than they expect. They took a tonkin against Newcastle the other day, which I wasn't expecting at home. So I'm hoping that that kind of result repeats itself this weekend. But yeah, I feel like the top four race is always kind of like who doesn't bottle it the most, like will normally get top four. It's not really on like who performs the best and kind of beats each other and it's a shootout. It's more of kind of like who doesn't shoot themselves in the foot the most. And we're very capable of doing that. So let's see how it goes. But I'd probably still put us as the little horse, as Jose used to say, in this race. But I think we've got a shot, and I wouldn't be shocked if we did it. Let's get into the predictions then, Johns, the preview section.
We should start keeping a tally of this, by the way. We should
start
in
a league.
Future episodes, we'll start a little tally to see who's getting them right, because I feel like I either get them completely wrong or I get them spot on. It's
Yeah,
usually
you're
the
normally on
former
the
and not
money
the
or
latter.
just like completely a million miles off. And I'm
Yeah,
normally like
yeah.
always very close, but never exact with the scores
Yeah,
9 times out of 10. But let's start off with I think we're both playing on Sunday, but I
yeah.
believe you guys are first up. So you
I
got a
think so.
trip
Yeah.
to the London Stadium, where we'll
I
actually be
hate that
going
name.
in yeah, I know we'll actually be going there to watch Spain and Colombia in like a month's time or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're going to face West Ham. Tough away ground to visit. We obviously lost there early in the season. Quite a few teams have struggled. I think you guys have already gone there in the League Cup, didn't you? And took an L there as well. So,
Yeah, we lost.
well,
Yeah.
what do you think is going to be the result in this game, and how do you think it will go?
I think we're going to win 2-0.
I'm
And
straight in.
the reason I'm saying that is because I also think, like West Ham rely on a couple of players to be like critically important. I think if those players dip off at any point, they don't look that great anymore. Right? I'm not under the impression that like David Moyes is like has some sort of masterclass. I just think he's somehow fallen backwards into some really good signings, um, and is managing to get a decent tune out of some of the people that he already had. So I think if a player like Bowen and Kudus aren't performing quite as well, I don't see them as big a threat as they were previously. So I'm probably gonna eat my words on this one. Um, but I'm gonna go for a 2-0 Arsenal away win. I think it will be. I'm not going to say uneventful, but I think it will just be like two scrappy-ish type goals, and we just get through it at the end. And I think West Ham. Maybe I'm trying to go into it too deep, but I think they're not going to put up as big a fight if we go up. So if we're 1-0 up, if we're 2-0 up, I don't think they're the type of team to come back and beat us 3-2 or whatever else, give us those kinds of problems. So I'm going to say 2-0 Arsenal win, but I'm sure I'll be wrong. I'll either be wrong or I'll be dead on the money. One of those two.
Yeah, actually, West Ham are one of those teams at home. They're a different kettle of fish.
Oh, God.
Um, so, yeah, I mean, I felt it personally not that long ago. So, yeah, I don't think it will be. I don't think there's any way you guys get a clean sheet.
Okay.
And
All right.
I
All right.
think don't forget you were 2-0 up at West Ham last season. I remember a certain star boy missing a penalty and things
Yeah,
going
but we
slightly
bottled
awry.
that. We
So
bottled that. Not necessarily they came back. We just absolutely bottled that.
I know, but I think West Ham are much better team this season than they were last season. So I just think it's
Mm.
going to be a nip and tuck game. So I'm actually going to go for an Arsenal win as well, but I think it will be high scoring. So I'm going to go 3-2 Arsenal. I think West Ham
Oh
are going to
wow.
score a couple of goals, but I think this will be kind of akin to that Luton game where it's a bit kind of all over the
Yeah.
shop, but you guys pull it out of your arse in the last 5-10 minutes of the game and managed to
Mm.
get the victory 3-2. So I'm going 3-2 Arsenal. Let's move on to the Villa United game, which is the following game on the Sunday. Don't know why
Yeah.
our two teams are always on Sundays at the moment. But
Yeah.
yeah, we're going to Villa Park. Oh, terrible memories last season. They slapped us up there as well. They beat you guys earlier in the season at Villa Park. They're beating City at Villa Park. They're
It's not an easy
pretty
place to go, man.
pretty hard to go and get a victory against. I believe they've only lost or dropped points twice this season at Villa Park. Obviously, the Newcastle game we just talked about. I think they lost that game. Was it 3-1 in the end?
Yeah, 3-1.
They also drew with Brighton, I think, earlier in the season, and it was 0-0 or something. It was a bit of a stinking affair. No,
Yeah, they
Sheffield
drew with
United.
Sheffield United. Yeah,
Sheffield
Sheffield
United,
United
yeah,
at home.
yeah, I remember that. But they relied on like a super late equaliser. They were actually losing at the beginning. So there's only a few teams that have got points from them. We've got an absolutely smelly record. I think we've extended it now. It was originally the top 6 that we couldn't get points against away. Now then it became the top 8. Then I think it got to like double digits, top 10 or something. We couldn't get wins or draws against. So yeah, we're not coming into this game with loads of confidence of winning. So I'm going to start off the prediction on this one. I think we will get a draw. Actually, I think Villa are in the midst of a wobble, and I wouldn't be shocked if we won, man. But I think this is one of those games where It's not a crazy. We're not living in a multiverse where, or we are living in a multiverse where it could be United win, it could be a draw, it could be Aston Villa win. I think the most likely one, the highest probability, is an Aston Villa win. Still because of their general form, but I think we're good value for a draw. So I'm going to go 1-1 in this game. What do you think, Johns?
I think one thing as well is that they've got to play tomorrow. They've got to play Chelsea in the FA Cup tomorrow.
Oh yeah,
so they've got a midweek game. So tiredness, even though it's a Sunday, I think fatigue is going to set in a little bit for them. As much as I've got Ollie Watkins in my FPL team and I captained him and he got me like 40 points, I'm going to go for a 0-0. No one ever suggests this or predicts it, but I'm going to go for a bore draw. I reckon no one's scoring, nothing's happening. May as well just turn it off from the first minute on.
That's got to be your worst prediction I think you've made on the pod so far.
We'll see.
I don't think there's any chance in the world that finishes 0-0. Like, I can see Villa tonking us
0-0 with Chelsea.
Yeah, but that was at Stamford Bridge, and Chelsea probably stuck 10 men behind the ball and played a bit of house football. But there's no chance. No, we don't. We play S football.
Transition football, baby.
Yeah, but we don't get many clean sheets, and I don't think we've had a 0-0 all season. So, yeah, I don't see it ending. Not even in a positive light. I don't see it ending 0-0. So I think even 1-1, I was probably going on the low side. I could see it being 2-2 or 3-2 or 3-1 to Villa or 3-1 to us.
Both of you also have got a pretty good like goals against record, right? Like they've only let in 30 goals, you've only let in 32. And if you look at the teams around you, I mean, you're not the same as Liverpool, City or Arsenal, of course, but you're both. You know, obviously they score a lot of goals, but you're both decently good at defending somehow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm completely just pulling that out of the air because I don't feel like I've seen a 0-0 at all this season in the Premier League. So I'm gonna say this is going to be the game where it happens.
Nah, remember like what was it like a week or 10 days ago or 2 weeks? There was everything we turned on TV at the time was just a 0-0 stinky game. Like there were so many 0-0 boring games for a couple of like fixtures. It was just like, can we just see a bloody goal already? But yeah, no, I hope we get the win. So I'm hoping I've done the same kind of judge that I did when we played Wolves away, and somehow we managed to get a win. I will say if we get the win, we're right back in it. This is basically like the Arsenal Liverpool game. If we can win this, I reckon we're right back.
Arsenal of it.
We're properly in the top 4 race. We're properly in there. If we lose it, I reckon there's no chance in hell we're getting top 4. The best we can hope for is 6th or 5th. Because we'll be 9 points behind them.
Yeah,
we won't have any more games against them or Spurs. There's no like 6-point swings that we can get. So this is one of our last opportunities to get a 6-point swing against a 4th or 5th place team. So yeah, I'm praying and hoping we get the W, and I'll take it anyway. I don't care who scores. I'll take it even if McSaw
Give me
scores.
own goals. I don't care.
Yeah, own goals. McSaw scores. Maguire scores. I'll be on here next week, shameless. Screaming McSauce, screaming
top 4
Slaphead.
Champions League. We're coming for
exactly.
you. Yeah.
We're coming for you. Who are you? But yeah, no. Let's see how that goes. But we'll wrap up the pod here, Johns. A good one. Bit of a different approach to the analysis this week, but I enjoyed it. So yeah, thanks for jumping on, Johns, as always. And we'll see you guys next week. Take care, guys.
See you next week. Cheers, everyone.